Father was doing it for the time being so that he may carry the sin and the curse of the world and become the sacrifice and do away with the sin and redeem people. But he has not forgotten him. He's not going to leave him there in that state and condition. On the third day, God turns his face towards him and smiles at him and raises him from the dead.
God of glory, God of wonder, God of beauty, you reign through all eternity. Before the mountains or the earth had been found, you were our everlasting Lord. You've been our home, you've been our shelter safe for young and old. To generations past, we stand in awe of a God so great. We stand in thanks for your faithfulness. Oh Lord, you've been our dwelling. God of glory, God of glory, God of wonder, God of beauty, you reign through all eternity. Before the mountains or the earth had been formed, you were our everlasting Lord. You've been our hope, you've been our shelter safe for young and old. Through generations past, we stand in awe of a God so great. We stand in thanks for your faithfulness. Oh Lord, you've been our dwelling place. God of glory, God of wonders, God of beauty, you reign through all eternity. Before the mountains or the earth had been formed, you will our everlasting. Tell him what he's been to you. You've been our hope, you've been our shelter safe for young and old. Through generations past, we stand in awe of a God so great. We stand in thanks for your faithfulness. Oh Lord, you've been our joy, you've been our hope.
What happened on the cross is not only the bearing of our curse and our sin, it's the burial of our curse and sin, so that we'll never see it again, so that the blessings can flow into our life. This is the way the Bible presents the whole story. So Jewish people, culturally, they believed that the cross was a place where a man who's cursed by God dies. The man died on a cross, he's cursed by God. That's the way they viewed it. So for the Romans, it's a man who committed sedition, the worst crime of the day. You can go against anything, but not against the empire. If you're gone against the empire, you're finished. You'll be hung on a cross, the worst form of death. And for the Jewish people, the worst thing that can happen to you is be cursed by God, and such a man hangs on a tree. This is the way they viewed. Culturally, this is what it meant to them. But when Jesus died, when Jesus was condemned to die on a cross, he never violated any Roman law or any Jewish law. both the Romans and the Jews were very proud about their law and their system. The Jews were proud about the law that God has given, the 10 Commandments and their ordinances and all that, because it was all divine, God-given. They said there's no other nation that has laws like us. Very just, correct laws God has given to us. They took pride in that law, and they took pride in executing that law. They thought they were superior to all others. Romans thought the same thing. They thought they were a very superior nation. Their law and the system, they were very proud of it. There was some justice in the Roman Empire, and the laws such as you cannot simply beat a person if he is a Roman citizen. You have to take him to court, and the court must punish him and specify how many times he can be whipped. Only that many times he can be whipped. Only by authority of the court you can whip him. You cannot simply beat him. Paul takes those things, those privileges, because he is a Roman citizen. So the Roman government was a very systematic, had a very systematic law on their side, and they took great pride in the fact that they had very decent laws, good laws. There was justice in it. But now look at Jesus' condemnation. It's the worst thing that ever happened. They bring Jesus before the Roman official, the governor, and he inquires him personally and questions him. And then finally he comes to the conclusion that he sees no wrong in this man. This man has done nothing wrong. He calls the Jewish people and tells them, listen, I see nothing wrong with this guy. In fact, I'm going to wash my hands so that, I am not held responsible for killing an innocent man. So he washes his hands. Then strangely, after declaring, I see nothing wrong with this man, he has not violated any Roman law, he hands him over to be crucified, because there is a mob out there that is crying, free Barabbas and crucify Jesus, because of popular demand. Have you ever heard anything like this? Because of popular demand, not because he has violated anything. He himself, the Roman official, the highest Roman official of the day in that area, has declared that this man has not violated any law. The Jewish people, they took great pride in their law, but they accused him of things. It was all misunderstanding. They said, well, he says he's the Son of God. Who does he think he is? Yes, he is the Son of God. He didn't lie. He was not blaspheming. He is the Son of God, but they could not understand. He said he will destroy this temple and build it in 3 days. He was talking about his death and his resurrection. They could not understand it. They thought he has violated everything. He has offended them, and he is worthy of death. They say he has violated the Sabbath law many times. That was a constant accusation. All the 4 Gospels again and again carry this conflict between the Jewish leaders and Jesus based on the Sabbath. Jesus never violated any one of those. In fact, the Bible tells us that he is the only one that is satisfied truly the requirements of the law. There is no man ever that truly satisfied the requirements of all the law. Nobody could do it. The 10 Commandments, nobody has ever done all of it perfectly. None of us are capable of doing that. Everybody has failed. Only Jesus satisfied it. He perfectly satisfied the laws of God. But yet he was up there on the cross hanging, and they nailed him. And the guys who violated are standing there nailing him and laughing at him. What kind of justice is this? The Romans take great pride in their law, but yet they gave a man up to die after the judge declared that this man had not done anything wrong. So the cross of Jesus Christ is something very special. Usually they put people on the cross after having judged and made accusations, and that accusation has been proven to be right. Then they commit the person to die on the cross, and it was fine in that day. But now the cross of Jesus takes on a totally new meaning, totally new significance. Here is a man hanging there who has never committed any sin. The ones who put him on the cross and killed him, they are the sinners. This man had no sin. He has not violated any law of the land. He has never done anything wrong. It's a total travesty of justice. What does it show? It shows that God created this world, gave it to man, told him to create a society and a culture, And man has gone as far as creating a society and culture that is so unjust, so full of evil, that they will take the very Son of God who made the heaven and earth, who came in the form of flesh. God who came in flesh, the holy God who showed up in flesh on this earth. They are so evil that they will take him and crucify him. And the mob will stand there and cry, crucify him. This shows, the cross of Jesus Christ shows where culture and society has gone, what has become of the culture and the society. When Jesus hung on the cross, there was darkness, similar to the darkness that was there in the beginning when there was chaos, emptiness, and darkness covering the earth. Out of that only God made a new creation. And now, again, God is getting ready to bring about a new creation. You see, God chose Abraham and commissioned him and his descendants to go and shine as lights before the world. They were told, arise and shine, for your light has come. But they couldn't shine because sin was in them. It was drawing them always to defeat. Defeating them, getting back into backslidden state, leaving God and going and worshiping everything else. They were like that. Why? Because sin was in their heart and sin was ruling, sin was ruining them. But now, Jesus not only came to teach and correct those things as he did during his lifetime, but he also died to change the very heart of man, cleanse him from sins, make him new, and give him a new heart, so that they will willingly obey God. So that they will be changed and become a new creation. That is why the cross was necessary. So the cross of Jesus Christ is something very special. You need to meditate on these things and think about these things. But the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Let's talk about the resurrection of Jesus Christ. You know, the early Christians, the first century Christians, were very moved by the comparison between the Garden of Eden and the Garden of Gethsemane. What happened in the Garden of Eden versus what happened in the Garden of Gethsemane. Passages such as Philippians chapter 2, verse 5 to 11, talking about Christ's cross and the resurrection and all of this, was very fascinating teaching for them, because it reminded them of how different Jesus is from Adam. In the Garden of Eden, Adam acted on his own behalf, rashly and disobediently, consumed that fruit, and he thought by doing that he will become like God and his eyes will be open, that God was depriving him of something very valuable and good, and that the devil has informed him about that. And now by eating this forbidden fruit, that his eyes are going to be opened and he's going to become like God. And he's going to become something greater than what he is. That's the reason why he ate it. But look at the second Adam. Jesus is described as the second Adam and the last Adam. The Bible, the New Testament teaches about Jesus like that. While the first Adam did like that, disobeyed God, and believed that God deprived him of something, and that by eating this he will get whatever God deprived him of. The second Adam was different. He totally trusted in God. Whatever God spoke, he spoke. Whatever God did, he did. He never acted on his own behalf. He only acted on God's behalf. He only did God's will. The first Adam took God's freedom that God gave him to think and determine and act, and used it in the wrong way and created a different kind of world, a society and culture. But the second Adam set aside all of his human and divine powers, sacrificed all of that in order to do the will of God, so that God may be glorified and God's will be done. Total contrast, So the early Christians recognized that the last Adam or second Adam did precisely what the first Adam failed to do. First Adam must have done this, but he failed to do. The second Adam did this. The second Adam declared his dependence on God, But the first Adam declared his independence of God. To look at the dependence of the second Adam, he's now going to start a new race, just like the human race started with Adam. Now he's going to begin a new race. Look at the kind of race that's going to come out from him. As the father is, so are going to be the children. So here is the first person of the new race, of the new creation. Look at his dependence on God. On the cross of Calvary, he cries out, saying, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? Now that is a cry that is recorded in Psalm 22, verse 1. Psalm 22 is about the crucifixion, right? Psalm 22, verse 1 records that. My God, why hast thou forsaken me? So, look at the dependence on God. He has trusted in God. He took on human flesh. He came in the world because God sent him. He did everything that God did. He spoke everything that God spoke. He did the works of God. Now he's on the cross. And all of a sudden he finds himself carrying the sin of the world and the curse of the world. And he looks up and God is turning his face away from him. The Bible says that God is one who cannot even look upon sin. He is so holy. So because he's now become the sin bearer and the curse bearer, God turns his face away from Christ. And Jesus looks at the Father, turning his face away. And then he cries out, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? Dependence on God now has resulted in God literally forsaking him to die on the cross, literally turning his face away. But still he trusted in God. Still he gave. See, no man can take my life, he said, unless I give it. He could have gotten it back, but he did not. He suffers through that. He realizes God turned his face away. God doesn't want to have anything to do with him because he's now bearing sin and curse. And he hangs on the cross. He's ready to go through even that and still trust God that God will do the best. Even after he goes through this horrible thing, that the end will be good, that God will come through for him. So he cries out, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? But then, in verse 24 of Psalm 22, there is the good ending. The psalmist prophesies what happens on the cross. He says Jesus will be crying out like this, saying, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? But in verse 24, he talks about what will happen in the end. Verse 24, the later part of verse 24 says, nor has he hidden his face from him, but when he cried to him, he heard. When he cried to him, he heard. Jesus cried from the cross, and his prayer or his cry did not go unheard. For the moment, it seemed like it went unheard as the Father turned his face away from him. And the psalmist says he has hidden his face from him, nor has he hidden his face from him. It looked like he has turned his face away from him, but really did not. The Father remembered him. The Father loved him. The Father cared for him. The Father was doing it for the time being so that he may carry the sin and the curse of the world and become the sacrifice and do away with the sin and redeem people. But he has not forgotten him. He's not going to leave him there in that state and condition. On the third day, God turns his face towards him and smiles at him and raises him from the dead. What a risk. Now, if you were called to do this, say, come, and you'll have to die. You'll say, what if you didn't raise me up again, What if you just didn't show up in time to get me back up? Jesus never doubted for one moment that God would raise him up. He believed totally and fully that God will indeed raise him up, that he will not leave him there. That is why the words, I love the promise that says, for he has said, I will never leave you nor forsake you. Right? Hebrews chapter 13. He remembers the promise that was made to Moses in the beginning. He says, For he has said, who has said? God has said, I'll never leave you nor forsake. How precious is that promise? God had promised Jesus that he will never leave him nor forsake him, that he will raise him on the third day. That is why he said, destroy this building, this temple. I will raise it up on the third day. He was confident that on the third day he was going to be risen again. He knew that he will be again glorified and be at the right hand of the Father. He was so full of faith concerning that. He believed that because the Father has said it, he will do it. And how meaningful the promise of God becomes for all of us. That promise particularly where he said, I'll never leave you nor forsake you. The author of the book of Hebrews understands that promise. He is ministering with that promise to the troubled people, the Hebrew Christians, people who have turned to become Christians from Judaism. They are facing troubled times and persecution. He is writing to them. He says, for God has said, I'll never leave you nor forsake you. It seems like God is not looking at you. God doesn't care about you. It's where you say, where is God? He says, he has said, I'll never leave you nor forsake you. And then he says in the next verse, verse 6 in chapter 13 of Hebrews, he says, therefore, we shall say, the Lord is my helper. I am not afraid. What shall man do unto me? He says, the Lord has said that, so confidently you speak that. Confidently you speak that. On many occasions I have preached this thing. Every time it comes out, with such power, that promise. Because I realize as I study these kinds of things, how true that promise is. That you can literally do the will of God and completely abandon yourself in him and do his will and go where he sends you to go and do what he sends you to, tells you to do and be what he tells you to be. If he has promised, he will never forsake you, no matter what. I'll never leave you nor forsake you, he said. Therefore you shall say, the Lord is my helper. Oh, I am not afraid. What shall man do unto me, or what shall any circumstance do unto me? Let's all say it. He has said, I will never leave you, nor forsake you. Therefore, I will say, the Lord is my helper. I will not be afraid. What shall man do unto me? Now I'm sure a lot of people will say, well, how do you believe that? You're sure that the Lord will never leave you? I am sure that the Lord will never leave me, because here is the proof. He sent his son Jesus and told him to go die on the cross, take on human flesh, go into the world. How boldly he leaves everything, forsakes everything, gives up his divine power, and comes as a man, fully confident in God that God will stick with him and be with it through it all. And then dies on the cross, ultimate obedience. He's ready to even give his life on the cross. He closes his eyes saying, Father, into your hands I commit my spirit. Because he knows that he's closing his eyes, but third day he's going to raise him up. Even today, every Christian that dies and finishes his life on the earth, in the last moments when he closes his eyes, he closes with confidence of the resurrection. The one who raised Jesus from the dead will also raise us up. That's a confidence that we all have. We close our eyes with that confidence because we know that he will never forget us. The people that put us in the grave may forget, but he will never forget. He knows exactly where we are. He'll come after us because we are his property. We belong to him.
Let's clap our hands. Everybody clap your hands a little bit. I will come into your presence, Lord, with a sacrifice of praise. With a song I will exalt you, Lord. delivered me from shame. I'm created in your righteousness. Blessed be your holy name. Oh, lift him up, his name be lifted high. Lift him up, exalt his holy name. Lift him up, his name be lifted high. Exalt his holy name. Oh, lift him up, his name be lifted high. Lift him up, exalt his holy name. Lift him up, his name be lifted high. Exalt his holy name. I will come into your presence, Lord, with a sacrifice of praise. With a song I will exalt you, Lord. Blessed be your holy name. I will give you all the glory. You delivered me from shame. I'm created in your righteousness. Blessed be your holy name. Oh, lift him up, his name be lifted high. Lift him up, exalt his holy name. Lift him up, his name be lifted high. Exalt his holy name. Oh, come on and lift him up. Lift him up, his name be lifted higher. Lift him up, exalt his holy name. Come on and lift him up, his name be lifted high. Exalt his holy name. Lift him up, his name be lifted higher. Lift him up, exalt his holy name. Come on and lift him up, his name be lifted high. Exalt his holy. Oh, everybody, one last time. Lift him up, his name be lifted higher. Lift him up, exalt his holy name. Lift him up, his name be lifted high. Exalt his holy name. Exalt his holy name. Lift him up. Oh, lift him up. Clap your hands and praise the Lord.